All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to be going over some great information, some tools that are newly released by the Exceptional Children's Assistance Center. I will be your presenter today. My name is Mandy Sonnenberg. I serve as the PTI manager here. I'm going to go ahead and advance to our next slide. So those of you that may not really know much about our organization, these are some of our funded partnerships. I'm not going to go in great detail because really we're here to learn about these really great resources that are hot off the press. So just some of our funded programs and partnerships are the Achieve program, which is a pre-ETS program that is virtual. We have some work that we do with DPI under NC SIP. We have the North Carolina Deafblind Project, the North Carolina Lens NC. We have a ton of short-term projects, but that's just a brief overview. I don't want to go too deep into that right now because what I want to focus on is what we will be learning today in our brief session. So by the end of the session, you're going to understand where to locate these resources. I'm going to put the links in the chat multiple times today. Bear with me. And then you're going to understand what these resources are and how you can utilize them. So number one, we're going to understand the concept of least restrictive environment, that LRE. Acronyms on a Tuesday afternoon. And then exploring extended content standards, addressing behavioral concerns, 'tis the season for behaviors. And so this rolled out just in time. And then the difference between a medical diagnosis and special education eligibility. A lot of families get confused, and we'll go over this and these great resources. So our first one, I'm going to toggle between screens, so I apologize in advance. But the first one is our least restrictive environment. And you may say, okay, well, what is this? So IDA refers to the Individuals Disability Act, IDA, which is a federal requirement that children with disabilities are not to be placed in a special education class or separate school unless the nature or severity of their disability is such that the regular education classroom with supplementary aids and support cannot achieve satisfactory. And so you might say, okay, what does that mean? How do I find this? So give me 1 second. And we are going to go over here to the least restrictive environment. All right, so on our website, and I'm going to show you guys from our website. So you go to ecac-parentcenter.org. And in the search bar, least restrictive environment fact sheet. Look at that. All right. So you may say, all right, Mandy, this is really cool. Now, how do I find this in the future? So I'm going to throw this in the chat, but I'm going to show you what this looks like on our website. So you download this resource right here. So I already gave a short little sentence about what least restrictive environment is and who determines it. Without reading this fact sheet, I want everyone in the audience, who do you think determines the LRE? Put it in the chat. District? It's actually all IEP teams must determine when developing the student's IEP. So they are determining that component in an IEP meeting. So it's really, really important to know that IEP teams make this decision and they affect where the student will learn and participate in during the school day and how they're going to receive those special education services, whether it's push in, pull out, and what that looks like, the duration, and how often. So this goes a little bit more in depth of that important information. And then on the second side of this, so how is it determined? IEPs may not make placement decisions solely on the factor of diagnoses, disability categories, severity of the disability, specific scores on evaluations, staffing issues, or administrative convenience. And then this talks about the continuum of alternative placement. So obviously gen ed is where you want to go first, then the special education classroom, then it would go separate school or special school, homebound, and then hospital or facility. And this fact sheet will go over all that information. All right, so now I'm going to make you guys dizzy. And Andrea, am I still sharing our presentation?
Yes,
All right.
you're good.
I apologize in advance for making you guys dizzy, but I think this is really important. So extended content standards. So this is for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. And we get a lot of questions on ECS, what it is, how it impacts the student, what it looks like. Will they still graduate with a high school diploma? There's a lot of misinformation out there. So we felt this resource was really, really important for families across the state of North Carolina. So with that being said, I'm going to swap over to our website so you guys can figure out where to get this. 1 second. And I actually already have this one pulled up, but I'm going to go ahead and put this link in the chat. And someone said, do I have some say about the LRE? Absolutely. You are a part of the IEP team. And so it's really, really important, you know, you come to those meetings prepared. And that's another resource you could use is that IEP checklist. It helps you look at data before, steps to take before, during, and after the meeting, so you can actively participate. All right. So this is what the extended content standards fact sheet looks like. It is a ton of information. And it goes, what are the extended content standards? Who are the students with the most significant disabilities? It answers those questions that we receive a lot here at ECAC. Who decides if a student with the most, or who decides if a student is a student with the most significant cognitive disabilities? And it's, once again, it's the IEP team members, which includes the parents, right? It includes that gen ed, that EC teacher, the LEA, maybe community supports. Maybe your student receives ABA, maybe they receive private speech, OT, whatever that looks like for your family. And then, do students who follow ECS learn in a separate classroom? This is, once again, the IEP decides where the student will learn based upon their individual needs. This is not a cookie cutter thing. It is really based on the student's unique needs. And so this is a great resource if you have a student in ECS, or maybe that's a consideration for your family and your student at this time, what it'll look like. How do the students follow the ECS, so extended content standards, participate in testing? Well, federal and state laws policy requires students to be given tests to all students, including end of the year testing. So some students with the most significant disabilities take an alternative test, which is the NC Extend 1. And then what are the impacts of ECS and Extend 1 on high school graduation? We get a lot of questions. My kids in the ECS, are they going to graduate with a high school diploma? So transition planning applies to all students with disability, including those on the extended content standards known as ECS. So parents of students on ECS should be clearly informed on their students' academic achievement and will be measured on an alternative standard, and how to participate in alternative assessments may delay or affect their student from completing requirements for a high school diploma. Students with ECS that complete high school earn a graduation certificate and participate in graduation exercise with their peers, but they do not receive a North Carolina diploma. And so all of this information, it also talks about they may be eligible to continue to receive a free appropriate public education, or FAPE, until the end of the school year, which the student reaches the age of 22. And I'm going to go ahead and put this link in the chat, and then I'm going to toggle back over to our presentation.
Mandy, there is one question about this sheet. Someone asked, do they still have to teach my child daily with ECS?
If your student is receiving ECS and on the extended content standard, they should be receiving education daily. There's probably more to that question, and it's probably pretty personal. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is reach out, get connected with one of our parent educators. But every student who's in the school building should be receiving some form of education daily. Now, it's going to depend on the breakdown of their IEP, how they get supports and services. But if your student is ECS, they should be receiving supports and services, yes. And we can talk more about that offline. And I'm making you guys dizzy one more time, I'm sorry. All right, so 'tis the season for behaviors. We've had holiday break, winter break, Spring break's around the corner and behaviors tend to pick up. So a lot of parents call us, my student is being suspended. We have so many concerns. What can we do? So all of the frontline staff, we put our brains together and we said, what are some questions that apply to all students and questions that apply to 504s and IEPs that parents can ask? And so I'm going to now toggle over to this resource. 1 second. Now I apologize, I've been sick, so if I start losing my voice or coughing, that is why. So questions. How does our school use MTSS to help all students learn the expectations for behaviors? So this is for all students, right? How do teachers and other staff deal with bullying, hurtful, or aggressive behavior? What does that look like? Who makes decisions about discipline and suspensions? And where can you see that policy? You know, we hear a lot from families, well, they said this policy. Well, ask to see the policy. You know, you need to be informed as a parent as you're navigating your student's educational journey. How and when does our school involve police or the school resource officer or SRO? Questions that can apply to those 504 kiddos and IEPs. So how do I set up a meeting to talk about my child's behavior? And I always encourage families to follow, you know, send these questions via email. And if you're not sure about the tone of your email, you can always reach out to us and be like, hey, can you review this email before I send it? Can you give me some specific examples of behaviors you're concerned about, including what's going on before the behavior started and how the staff responded? That's that ABC data. Has a functional behavior assessment been completed to learn about the function of my child's behavior? What data can I see about my child's response to behavior intervention that is in place currently? Who in the district or community can provide training for my students' teachers? You know, there's a lot of turnover right now in education. There's a lot of long-term subs. And so the staff that's working with your student may not have the training they need to be successful. And not only does it support your student, but it may support another student in the classroom. What is the difference between a 504 and an IEP? What does that look like? We also have a fact sheet for that if you're not sure. And if you're not sure the differences between a 504 and IEP, I want to encourage you, reach out to us and we can provide you with resources and information to help you have a better understanding. What accommodations might be helpful or help prevent my child's challenging behaviors? What are my child's rights if they're suspended more than 10 days? And if your child has been suspended for more than 10 days, an MDR should take place, a manifestation determination review, and they look at the incident and determine if that behavior was a manifestation of your child's disability. What are my rights if the school calls me to pick up my child early, right? And so a lot of families, they get calls, you know, your kid's misbehaving, having these behaviors, need you to come get Johnny. And if your student's not formally suspended, that's considered an informal removal. And if that's happening to you, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to us so we can provide you resources and information regarding that. And then questions that apply to IEPs. These are some great questions to really get the team talking and on the same page. But what are some options? Revising my child's IEP goals. Is my child receiving special education services from a certified special education teacher? That is absolutely a valid question in today's education field, because like I said, there's a lot of long-term subs put in place. Fill-outs from the school district office can join the IEP team to share their expertise. That might be where the behavioral specialist from the county level attends the meeting and brings the next level of expertise, and they're a non-biased party, really, because they may not have ever truly worked with your student. And they may bring ideas. And then here are some definitions below, but if you click the highlighted like MTSS, this will actually take you to another website. Same with bullying, discipline policies, 504 plans. So this tool is really cool. It has information loaded within information. So I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste and put this in the chat. All right, so to make you guys dizzy, I think one last time, and I apologize. So I don't know why it won't let me pick up whereas. So now we're going to talk about medical conditions / clinical diagnosis versus special education eligibility and identification. And we get this call so frequently. So let me put this. This is a two-sided thing. And I'm trying to shrink it or maybe expand it so you guys can see it. There we go. Maybe. All right. So parents, we get phone calls all the time. My student's eligible for an IEP because my child has a medical condition or diagnosis such as autism, dyslexia. These are just two off the top of my head from this week of phone calls, right? And they're like, my child automatically qualifies for an IEP. That is not true. So it does not automatically qualify them. There are two primary types of diagnoses. So there's a clinical and medical, and they focus on identifying and understanding the medical condition, the developmental disability, or mental health condition. And these diagnoses take a holistic view of the person and are made by a qualified clinician. An educational identification of a disability focuses on the child's experience in the school setting and the impact the condition has on the student's learning. So special education eligibility is determined by an IEP team. And we kind of went over the components of the IEP team, those members. And the eligibility is determined by reviewing data from a variety of sources. And it's truly to determine if a child requires specifically designed instruction. And so for a child to be eligible for an IEP, they must determine that all three criteria below has been met. So the child meets one of the 14 disabling conditions. So these eligibility categories are found underneath here, and they're outlined. And then the disability has an adverse effect on their educational performance. So the academic achievement and the functional performance. So the adverse effect on the educational performance means the child's progress is impeded by the disability to the extent that some level of support is needed. The level of impact may be minimal, and supportive strategies or accommodations may be sufficient in addressing the adverse effect. The IEP team's determination of adverse effects should be based on the result of the assessment. Sorry. And then the need for specifically designed instruction. The progress is impeded by the child's disability to the extent that educational performance is significantly and constantly below the level of similar age and grade level peers. And so this goes over that. And in order to do so, the IEP must do the following. And let me put this link in the chat for you guys. All right. Let me go back to my main screen. I apologize. All right. And I see I have some questions in the chat, and I'm going to read some of these without going too in depth. So someone asked, what do you do if you find out your teacher is not a certified teacher? So it is very common right now that you may have a long-term sub in place of a certified teacher, and that is due to staffing shortages, and it is not just here in North Carolina, it is nationwide. So you can always ask your IEP team, like, hey, is there a plan to hire? Maybe the job's been posted for a year and no one has applied. Or maybe they have applied, gone through the hiring process a week before they're supposed to start, they resign. That is very, very common. And so maybe it's an EC teacher that's, you're supposed to have an EC teacher and the student's not receiving services from a certified teacher. If that's the case, I'd reach out to one of us and we can give you some next steps to follow up with your local school and school district. And then someone else asked, are private ABA professionals allowed to give say in IEP meetings? It is very common, meetings I attend personally, that there are ABA professionals in the meeting and, talking about what they're doing in the community, how it's successful, what challenges they faced, because at the end of the day, it's teamwork is the dream work. And so those community professionals sometimes bring another level of expertise, what they're using, and that is working, but it also can kind of help the school, home, and the community be on the same page so the students receiving consistency across settings. I hope that answered your question without being too specific. And I will send out all of these resources this tomorrow or this afternoon with the PDF version of this. All it is just pictures of the slides, and the links are not embedded in them, but I will send the links below that were shared in the follow-up email. But these are just some of our new resources I wanted to share with you guys. They're great tools, like I said, 'tis the season for behaviors. And so that resource has been really helpful for many families we've been serving. And they've been questions that really just open the door to communication between the parent and the school to find out really what's going on and how, both parties can work together to support the student. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share our poll. Oh, Andrew
I
already
already
did.
have
Andrew
that.
is ahead of
Yes.
me. You go.
I already have that up. If everyone can just quickly fill out that form for us, we really appreciate it.
Yes, and stay tuned because we are working on so many resources right now. I'm really excited because this information is just truly valuable for families as they're navigating the special education process. Or maybe your student has a 504 and you're like, what questions are good questions? And if you're not sure, feel free to reach out to us, connect with one of our parent educators. We are here to help, and we want to provide you with resources and information to empower you to advocate for what's best for your child and your family.
I do see someone's hand is raised. I'm not sure if they meant to do that or not, but let's see.
I do not see them on my side.
Oh, really?
Well, if you can put your question in the chat, I'm not gonna, because this session is being recorded. I don't want to call you by your first name, and if it was oops, that is okay too.
I think there's another question or two questions. Let's see.
So Stephanie, that's a really specific question. I'm going to ask you to reach out and get connected with a parent educator from school to the hospital. Cheryl, that's also, sorry, I said your name and it's being recorded, so you're not going to be able to use Sandra, but that is a very, very specific question. But typically, and this is really common, we have children in that situation where they've been in the hospital and now they have been discharged and they need to go back to school, right? And so a transition plan typically takes place between the community providers, the IEP team, the parents, and talk about what supports have been provided, what changes have been made, where the student truly is right now. So without going into too much detail, I'm going to encourage you regarding that question to reach out. But I definitely have some insight on that for you. And if no one else has a question, or if you do, but before you guys log out, Andrew has some really exciting news to share.
I'll share two things. Next week, you can plan on joining us here on Tuesday for navigating virtual IEP meetings, which is very important. I know a lot of you are having to attend your meetings virtually, so join us. We'll be joined with ECAC parent educator Anastasia Newton. And if you did not know, February is Parent Family Leadership Month. So it's time to celebrate the amazing leadership families show every day at home, school, and in the community. And as part of Family Leadership Month, we will be announcing the winning school for the Tell Us Something Good award on Tooltime Tuesday on February 25th. So that will be very exciting. We actually had a large number of entries this year, so we are very excited and for that. So also look for an email coming out hopefully by the end of this week to vote for that award. You'll be able to see all the entries, read through all the good things, and be able to vote. So that is very exciting.
Yes, thank you for sharing that wonderful news. All right, well, we want to thank you guys for logging in today, learning about some of our new resources that are hot off the press. Stay tuned because we are always working on something new to send out. So we are looking forward to sharing that information with you. Those that had some questions regarding their family that were pretty detail specific, I definitely want you to take the time, get connected with a parent educator. because we don't want to give too much detail over this, because it's going to be family specific and your next steps may look different than another family. So thank you guys for taking the time to join us today, and we will see you guys next Tuesday.
Thank
Have
you,
a good one.
everyone. Bye.